Welcome to St. John the Evangelist Church in Orange, New Jersey. St. John's is one of the oldest Catholic churches in New Jersey. This is a story of a mother church and how it was built. The city of Orange became independent from Newark in 1806. It grew rapidly, spurred on by growth in the hat-making industry. By 1850, the population was more than 4,300. While the city would soon have many amenities, such as a railroad station and streetcars, what it lacked was the Catholic Church. At that time, the nearest Catholic church was St. John's on Mulberry Street in Newark, 6 miles away. In 1851, a U.S. Navy captain named Ward, along with 9 other families, purchased land and built a modest frame church, the first St. John's, Orange. By 1865, it was clear that a larger church would be needed. Father Edward M. Hickey purchased the property at the corner of Ridge and White Streets for the then enormous sum of $10,000. It is located on the highest hill west of Manhattan and east of First Watchung Mountain. In 1865, Father Hickey engaged architect Jeremiah O'Rourke to design a church in the Gothic Revival style. O'Rourke had already proven himself with his design of the chapel at Seton Hall University in South Orange, and he would go on to design the Cathedral Basilica of the Sacred Heart in Newark. Under the direction of Pastor Hickey, work began on June 24, 1866. The cornerstone was blessed by James Roosevelt Bailey, the first bishop of Newark, on September 23rd of that year. Like many other 19th century houses of worship in the Orange Valley, the church's exterior is faced with locally quarried brownstone. Philanthropist and real estate speculator Llewellyn S. Haskell, the founder of Llewellyn Park, donated the stone for St. John's from his quarry in nearby Eagle Rock, West Orange. In 1868, several stained glass windows, possibly created by Doremus, were installed. Although most of them were replaced in 1931, a few of these original windows remain in the entry area, and they are fine works of art. The new church was dedicated by Bishop Bernard John McQuaid on October 10, 1869. The building is 180 feet long and 68 feet wide, and the nave is 140 feet long. An 1872 fire caused $7,000 of damage and called attention to the existing debt owed by the church, which had grown to $300,000. That is more than $6 million in 2020. In March 1874, the church was to be closed to pay off its huge debt. Bishop Michael Corrigan of Newark ordered collections in every Catholic church in New Jersey to prevent the sale of the property and the possible bankruptcy of the diocese. In 1878, Monsignor Hugh Fleming purchased 3 bells which had been recently cast in Italy. They had been displayed at the Paris Exposition of 1878 and were awarded the Gold Medal of Excellence. Each of the bells is beautifully engraved with religious themes and quotations. In 1879, Monsignor Fleming purchased a pipe organ for the church. The instrument was built by Boston-based E and G.G. Hook in Hastings, one of the premier organ building firms in the United States. It contains 2,000 412 pipes in 38 ranks, with pipes ranging in length from 16 feet to only a half inch. The longest pipes are visible in the facade. During the 1880s, Lamprecht of Munich installed murals depicting various scenes from the life of Christ above the arches of the bays. This series of murals extends into the sanctuary. They are in the style of the Overbeck School of Art. The tower and spire were completed by 1881 and included architectural features copied from the tower of the Saulus Cathedral in France. The completion of the church and provision of its internal furnishings were achieved largely due to the efforts of Monsignor Fleming, who was rector of the parish from 1874 to 1908. The tower includes protruding gargoyles and statues of the four evangelists, and the spire features a richly crocheted area near the top. The original height of the spire was about 200 feet. The clock and statues of the four evangelists were installed later. In 1881, the 3 award-winning bells from the Paris exhibition were installed, along with 8 new matching bells which had been cast in Baltimore. Above the tabernacle rises the magnificent oak reredos, with the Archangel Michael standing guard, while a heavenly host of blessed saints are depicted on the rising tiers. The crossbeam supports a Gothic spire, which rises into the apse like an arrow piercing heaven. On each side of the sanctuary, there are 6 life-size high-relief depictions of the 12 apostles. The 4 rear panels are graced by angel figures, each carrying a scroll with a phrase from the hymn, Gloria in Excelsis Deo. Flanking the tabernacle are 2 panels in bas-relief depicting the Last Supper and Pentecost. The main altar, panels, and the reredos were all gifts of Francis C. O'Reilly in 1892. The sanctuary's parquet floor, installed in 1892, depicts inlaid vines and leaves and other magnificent floral patterns. In 1915, E. Howard and Company of Boston installed a tower clock of 4 illuminated dials, each 6 feet in diameter. The numbers, hands, and rims are bronze. The clock was the gift of A&P grocery chain founder and former Orange Mayor George Huntington Hartford, who had been the first person baptized at St. John's. The clock was attached by long metal rods to huge hammers which rang the bells below. Every 15 minutes a Westminster chime melody would ring out over the neighborhood, and the Angelus was heard 3 times a day. On August 1, 1922, a gilded cross which measured 7 feet tall was installed at the top of the spire. A newsreel movie was made of the unusual event, and it was shown on screens throughout the country. In 1923, von Gerichten Art Glass of Munich installed windows above the main altar, including a large triple window, 18 feet high and 7 feet wide, over the sanctuary and directly behind the main altar, depicting the crucifixion with an ornamental Gothic background setting. On each side of the center window are single windows with blank panels and Gothic canopies, each including a representation of 3 roses. In 1931, Zettler Studios of Munich installed windows along the aisles of the nave, replacing the original 1868 windows. In the 1940s, the pastor, Monsignor Paul Carew, replaced the original 1871 wooden Italian Stations of the Cross with plaster images. In 1954, the walls, nave, and aisle vaults were elaborately decorated with winding vines and crosses and a fantasy of elaborate gildwork. By 1970, after nearly 100 years of almost daily use, the organ had deteriorated and become difficult to tune or play. The Hartman Beatty Organ Company of Englewood, New Jersey, was awarded the contract to clean and renovate the organ. The work included restoration of the wind reservoirs. Extra care was taken to avoid changing any of the original 1879 sounds. At the 1979 centennial of the Organ Historical Society cited the instrument as having particular historical merit. The citation has only been granted to about 400 instruments nationwide. In 2001, the parish celebrated its 150th anniversary. Parishioners old and new gathered in a crowded church, with the interior freshly painted in soft tones of off-white and pale gray, highlighted by the gilding of the column capital, arch, and corbel leaf and flower decorations. And 20 years later, St. John's stands ready to continue its mission. In 2021, our parish church will be 155 years old. The challenges associated with such an old building continue. The parish works to maintain the tower, and after a full inspection of the water damage to the ceiling of the church, it has been discovered that the entire ceiling has been compromised and may soon need reinforcement. If you are in a position to help, please send donations to Building Repair Fund, St. John's Church, 94 Ridge Street, Orange, New Jersey, 07050. If sending a check, please write Building Repair on the check.